New York's population has still not fully rebounded 5 years after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to a new report by the nonpartisan think tank, the Empire Center for Public Policy. The findings show that the city is still less populated today than it was in 2020. As you can see in this graph, the 5 boroughs lost 262,000 residents since the start of the decade, a number much higher than other parts of the state and other parts of the country. And while the city did see some growth over the last 2 years, it has still only recovered about 1/3 of its population loss. Joining me now is Bill Hammond. He is the author of the report and a senior fellow at the Empire Center for Public Policy. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Bobby, pleased to be here.
So talk about what's going on here. I think about something that Mayor Adams talks about a lot, especially when he was running for re-election, which is that the city has rebounded from COVID. There's a record number of jobs here in the city, but it sounds like maybe the data tells a different story.
I mean, I think there are signs of a rebound, and in many ways the city recovered. In fact, it recovered more than I would have expected it to after what happened in 2020, which was just harrowing. But according to the census, the population is still down, as you said, by about 3%. And so what happened was in the first 2 years after the pandemic, I mean, including 2021 and 2022, 384,000 people moved out, and we're still down 262,000. So that, there's still quite a few people who have remained away as things stand.
Right, and I mean, there's a sense that there was a lot of New Yorkers who moved away during the pandemic. Maybe these were wealthier New Yorkers who had a second home they could flee to, but that those people maybe made their way back to the city eventually. But clearly that hasn't been the full picture, right?
Well, what the census indicates is that the Bronx, which is not a center of well-to-do New Yorkers, is the borough that took the largest hit. And the one borough that managed to grow during this period was Staten Island. So the Bronx, followed by Queens and Brooklyn, lost people. Manhattan lost a few people. Staten Island managed to grow. So, I mean, it's kind of a mix of things going on, because during the same period, you had an influx of international migrants. In fact, a record high number of international migrants in 2024. And that would include the people who were shipped into the city from Texas and Florida. But the key factor and the thing driving the population loss in New York City and the state as a whole is what's called domestic outmigration. People who live in New York moving to other states. More of them were moving out than moving in, and that's what caused the overall population to shrink.
Right, and yeah, I think we've got a graphic that shows some of that, because there's different factors, obviously, that go into population growth. There's the birth rate versus the death rate, and that was still in positive territory. And like you said, there was still immigration from other countries, but it's the domestic outmigration, which is probably consists of a lot of people who are priced out of New York. And if I remember right, the report said that Florida is the #1 destination. That's where more people have fled to than any other place, right?
In this 4-year period, actually it covers the first 3 years. We don't have 2024 data yet. But yeah, Florida was #1. It used to be the #1 was always New Jersey, which makes a lot of sense. It's right across the river. It's an easy commute. But no, now it's Florida. And I think that there's a lot of things going on at once. You mentioned being priced out. I think people also might have been freaked out, right? New York City was a very scary place for a few months there in the early part of the pandemic. But then there's also this phenomenon of working from home. And Manhattan is a real office-based economy. If you don't have to be near your place of work, you can work from your computer in Nevada and still have a job in New York City. That kind of changes the dynamics.
So, the city, of course, has, as we said, has struggled with recovery. New York State overall has also struggled. I think it's something like 2% population decline compared to pre-pandemic, which is the worst of any state in the country besides West Virginia. according to the report. I mean, it wasn't so long ago, New York was the third most populous state in the country. Now it's far behind Florida in fourth place. Talk a little bit about the political repercussions, because obviously fewer people means less and less power in Washington.
Well, the decennial census every in 2020 and in the next one will be in 2030 is what's used to determine how many representatives each state has in Congress and also how many seats it has in the Electoral College. And as things stand now, it looks like New York will lose another seat or two. It's been the part of the problem is not just that New York has been shrinking or stagnant, it's that other states have been growing faster, especially Texas and Florida. They've been gaining people, not just from New York, but from all, just in general. And it's because we are like our size is shrinking relative to the rest of the country, and that's causing us to lose our clout in Washington.
Is there any way, and I know you guys don't get deep into this in the report, but is there any way to account for the high housing costs? I mean, we continue to see this housing crisis here in the city. You would think we're losing people, and therefore there's less demand, less strain on housing here in the city, and yet costs have continued to go up. Any idea how we account for that?
Well, I think for one thing, you have to ask yourself how much more the housing might have gone up if the population hadn't declined. But you're right, there are conflicting forces going on. So yeah, I can't explain why. I think there was a dip in housing prices very early in the pandemic, if I remember correctly, but things have bounced back in that regard. I think one phenomenon you have in New York that is a little unusual is you have people who buy housing in New York as an investment property. I don't know what share of the market that would be, but it would account for, housing being in short supply even if people are not.
Talk a little bit about what this all means for policy. I mean, the report touched on this a little bit. It mentioned there should be a concern, focus on affordability. We got to see a little bit of that now from Governor Kathy Hochul and, of course, from the mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani. I mean, is that a sign that we're on the right track when it comes to retaining and growing population?
Well, I think there's different ways of thinking about the word affordability. Um, I think the way the governor is using it, and certainly the mayor is using it, they mean when something's expensive, government should subsidize, they should give you money to help you pay for it. I think another meaning of affordability, which I think is probably the more salient meaning in this situation, is to stop adding to the cost of things in the first place, to stop um, the different things that add to costs would include taxes. New York has some of the highest taxes in the country, and then also regulations that add to the expense of, say, building a new home or starting a business. I think another thing to think about is economic opportunity. When people move to the southwest, or to Florida, they will sometimes mention the climate, but often the driving thing is that they can find a job in those places. And New York has fewer jobs available for people who are getting started in life. And so again, the business climate is another big factor. So the approach that the governor and the mayor, it's good to hear them talking about affordability, but I think they have to look at the root causes of why things aren't affordable instead of sort of papering things over with subsidies.
Bill Hammond at the Empire Center for Public Policy, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight.
It's been a pleasure.